Comic fam, we're back to read comics because we want to.
We do. We want to read comics. That's all we want to do.
This started because we're like, we need to read more ongoing comics. And what do we need to figure out? Well, the value to the community. And what I realized is the comic fam needs more time to read more comics.
Sure, it can be very hard to kind of try new things. I've learned that about myself. Trying new things is hard. It's scary sometimes. You take a risk, it might be a waste of time. It might suck. And then you're out. So sometimes it's good to have people that you kind of know show you some stuff.
Yo, you guys know us, and we're chatting comic books. Hit the subscribe button, slap the like button. We're chatting about 3 different ones. We got a guest to chat about Scotty Young, goodness, but not the art. No, he wrote a book called Middle West that we got to discuss. Shout out to WillDaBeast, who's going to be joining us in a little bit. What else we got on deck?
We're going to be talking Hotel from AWA, from Upshot, that new publisher that just came out.
Very impressed by this publisher right now. And we also
good.
got one of my most excited new series that I'm getting into to chat about, Family Tree from Image Comics.
Jeff Lemire, man.
Jeff Lemire goodness that I'm so excited to spoil in this comic book discussion. Well, we're going to do light spoilers for the rest because we want you to read these books, comic fam, because they're that good. Let's chat about Hotel. And before we get into what Hotel's about and kind of why the comic fam needs to know and be following this publisher, let's chat about the hype around Ice Cream Man from like the last couple weeks since our last discussion, because it feels pretty good to see the love go into an independent run that really deserves it.
Ice Cream Man feels like it's getting a good fan base, right? It feels like the right amount of people are reading it, you know? Enough people are. I would like more, obviously, more people to be talking about a book like Ice Cream Man, but it's not underappreciated.
For seeing an anthology series get the attention that it deserves, I was pleasantly surprised to see another publisher kind of give a crack at it and do something unique. And what we have is Hotel with 2 L's in the name. And this book is an anthology series, but it's all connected over 4 short issues. Tell them about this publisher.
So yeah, this is a new publisher. They started like earlier this year. So unfortunately, it's a terrible time to start a new company right before the entire world ground to a halt because of COVID-19. Hotel is it's the only one of their comics that I've read all of. They've put out a book called Year Zero about zombies.
Hearing a lot of good stuff about that.
It was really good. Like, I'm not a fan of Walking Dead either, which is what I was kind of expecting. It's different. It's really cool. And it's another pretty short, self-contained storyline. That's something they're making an effort to kind of make comics more modern and kind of bring them out of the kind of Silver Age roots of stuff like Marvel, like all this. There's a lot of essays and material in the back about like the direction of this company. They're trying to specifically make comics feel more modern, which is my thing. So I'm very interested in this company moving forward. I made the decision to get Hotel because I work at a hotel, and I saw this in previews, and I was like, that's cool. A horror book about a hotel. That's good. There's 4 issues. I'm in.
Basically, we have like the crypt keeper of this anthology is like the front desk. So basically, that's you, Ryan.
That's me.
You're behind the front desk, and this is at night. So this would technically be your role, right?
Sure. I would be the scary guy giving you the key to your room, and you know, you open this book, and you're introduced to this guy.
So this is you. Basically, let's pretend this is you now. So comic fam, when you open this book, you're introduced to Ryan, and this is Ryan checking you into your hotel.
Yes.
And what would you tell them? You know, because they're about to be in for a, you know, kind of a rough night.
Yeah, this guy is creepy, man. Like, he's
Ryan's a little creepy.
I hope I'm not creepy I hope I'm not like this when I'm giving people room
Oh
keys.
my
Like,
God.
here's your key, sir. If you need anything, please call anytime. You know, like there's all kinds of creepy stuff you could do. I don't want to.
I'll be right by your door.
Day or night, let me know. I'll be right there. I'm going to get fired. Big time.
Comic fan, join the mystery mail call. Give Ryan a job.
That's fun. But no, this book, you open the first page and you're introduced to this guy, and he's just kind of filling you in on, you know, here's a hotel. People check into hotels. What goes on in those rooms? Who are these people? If these walls could talk, you know, what kind of stuff has happened in these rooms before I stayed there, you know? If you think about it, hotels are a scary place. The Shining takes place in a hotel.
True.
This kind of has some Shining echoes. So it's 4 issues. They're 4 self-contained stories, but they do connect, which is something we'll talk about later.
That's right. They do connect in a fun way, and each one of these stories are unique to themselves, you know, following a murder, following abuse, following something supernatural. And that's really where I want to leave it. Because
generally speaking,
this is so good.
Yeah, each issue follows a new person checking into one of the 4. There's only 4 rooms at this hotel. Each issue follows one person checking into one of the 4 rooms and what happens to them over the course of the same weekend. So by the time you continue reading the story, you're realizing, oh, this is all connected, and you start to see people from the other issues in the background of the current issue you're reading. I love that kind of stuff, dude. I really do. It felt like Pulp Fiction when you see something play out and then you rewind 20 minutes later and you watch that exact same thing happen from a different side of the room. I'm into it. I love that stuff.
Issue number 2, my favorite cover of the series and also my favorite story of the run. What happens when the murder doesn't go as planned and the person won't die? Oh my gosh, dude. It is pretty heavy storytelling. It's very dark, very mature.
Right.
But you know, this is up my alley 100%.
It's a pretty good, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's got echoes of The Shining, like I was saying. It feels like Psycho in a lot of the sense. Like you got a creepy guy working at the front desk. Ugh. I don't know. It's hard to explain too much about this without giving too much away. The first issue, I thought about this. I wrote it down in my notes earlier too. That like the first issue, you read it, it's kind of weird. It's off-putting.
Yeah,
I compared it to Black Mirror.
Absolutely. Whenever you got demon fetuses, it's definitely uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, and like the same feeling you get when you start Black Mirror, and there's a tricky subject matter in the first episode of that show, and you're like, oh, I've heard good things about this. I'm going to keep watching, but I'm already kind of
uncomfortable.
Right. What's episode 2 like? And episode 2 of Black Mirror happens to be my favorite one of the whole show, with the guy riding on the bike for points to kind of like improve his life. It's a really good story. I had the same feeling with Hotel. So like the first issue was like, oh, interesting. What else you got? Issue 2 blew my socks off. It was Tom's favorite. It's my favorite. It's a really good story. And by the time you finish all 4 of them, it ties the bow on the whole story. It's good. I'm enjoying Hotel.
All right, let's chat some Scotty Young. Yo, Fire Guy, who do we got on the mic with us?
We have our friend, WillDaBeast.
Oh, Will, thanks for joining us. How you doing, brother?
What's up, comic fam? It's me, WillDaBeast, on Comic Tom's YouTube channel, and I'm here to talk about Middle West.
Comic fam, you're in for a treat today because we have 18 issues of a comic book written by Scotty Young that has low-key gone unnoticed and is such a gem and is going to be getting people into comic books for decades to come.
That's a good point. I feel like a lot of people didn't read this. Enough people we talked to did, so that like it wasn't really an issue, but I think Middle West needs to be a lot more renowned than it currently is.
Comic fam, you know you got to subscribe to our channel, slap the like button, but you got to go follow WillDaBeast on YouTube. He's cranking out YouTube videos about comic book collectibles, variants, and interviews, like professionals in the industry. And when I saw Will interview Scotty Young about this mature read, I knew it was safe to bring you on the mic, brother.
Yep, so on Here on the Kid, I interviewed Scotty Young, and I also interviewed a couple more artists on there. But when I interviewed Scotty Young, we talked about Middle West. We talked about how it was such a great read and like what he did to it to make it so great. And like you guys said, yeah, not a lot of people are talking about this book, and it deserves to be talked about so much more because this is one of my favorite series that I've read. And I've only been new to this comic game for about a year now.
I think it really has the potential to get a lot of people into comic books, and seldomly does this happen where you have such a good story, such a good narrative where really by the end of it, you're feeling stuff. You're kind of thinking about life, and it literally crosses like age demographics. It's a brilliant thing.
I'm glad you said that because I was reading this and I had to put a couple of the issues down because I got like feelings, you know, I'm a pretty cold, heartless person, right? You know,
I know that,
I try
Ryan.
to project.
Will, do you see that through the mic sometimes? Like Ryan is a rough dude, right?
Exactly. Look how scared he looks. I'm tough, right? So
dude,
a book like Middle West.
It's the beard.
It's the beard.
Just wait till he gets that face tat.
Right. That's coming next.
I went from neck, now it's going to face.
Oh, it's a face tattoo. Okay.
Now we want both.
Wow. Thank you, Tom. We'll get that. We'll get there one day. But yeah, I've been like scared by comics before, like by a really good horror comic will get you, or some incredible superhero action comics will get you all pumped and excited. But it's not very often that like a comic makes you sad and reflective. And like this made me want to call my dad. There's a lot of family drama in this series, and I gotta go call my dad. He'll be right back.
All right. So Will, why don't you hit him with a spoiler-free synopsis, like lightly, what is this excellent book about?
This book is about the father-son relationship between Dale and Abel, and Scotty Young dedicated this book to his father and his 2 kids because those were the 2 people that taught him how to be a dad.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably like the biggest theme of this whole book is father-son dynamics, right? That feels pretty safe, a pretty safe way to describe this, the relationship between a boy and his father.
And that boy's journey over a short 18 issues to learn how he needs to overcome trauma and just a bad relationship with a family member. And what's crazy is, like, for something that's so deep that is really sad, it makes you feel good in ways as well. Like, this is a feel-good comic, really, when it comes down to it. How did it make you feel, Will?
So this book made me feel like sadness in the first issue because of like everything is getting laid out in there. You get to see Abel start his journey, leaving his dad behind, running away from home because of like all the bad things that happen, and trying to survive on his own.
Yeah, there's a lot of setup in that first issue that feels familiar, which is one of the things that makes this a good book to recommend to people. There's a lot of stuff that you've seen this kind of story start out before. Like a kid runs away from home, he ends up joining the circus. Like that's a little bit of a trope, but it's one of my favorite issues of the whole run. Honestly, is that first issue where they kind of delve into his new life in the circus, and like you're kind of throwing this little kid out into the real world, and he has to learn how to grow up and be an adult before his time, I guess, because he's still pretty little. I don't know. There's a lot of cool personal growth that happens throughout these issues.
Personal growth, and let's chat about this world that we're introduced to. And what I really enjoyed is that Scotty Young specifically doesn't explain a whole lot of stuff. Like, what you see is what you get, and that right there is the power of good writing.
So I feel like as a writer, it can be tempting to kind of just over-explain everything. And one of the cooler parts about Middle West is it throws you into this fantasy kind of sci-fi world without holding your hand, and like there's no wall of text at the beginning of the first issue to set up the whole world. It just kind of throws you in and lets you experience it as it comes at you.
So I can relate to this book because I almost lost my mom a couple of years ago. She had a stroke, and like I can relate to this because Abel doesn't have his mom anymore, and I almost had that happen to me. So this book really hits home for me.
Absolutely, man. I actually did lose a parent really young too. So that's actually what really spoke to me about this book. And I think that's like one of the reasons why I got so excited reading this, because it made me feel things. It reminded me about challenges in life. And I feel like when I was chatting with you, Ryan, these kind of conversations kind of came up. Like, I totally forgot about the feeling of loss, or forgot about that feeling of pain. And watching a character overcome this in such a comic book like joyful way it's really cool.
Yeah, I think this really is a good candidate for a comic book to give a friend of yours if they're trying to get into comics.
Oh, I know I'm going to have to buy the hardcover and get at least 3 copies, and I will probably never have any single copy in my house at one point because all my friends are going to borrow it, and I'm going to be like, what the heck?
You got to do like Saga, right? Just get like a whole bunch of
no
volume
idea
one
where my
trades.
Saga is. No idea where Seed of Destruction or Wake the Devil is. Like, they're
Someone
out
took
there.
your Crow trade too. I don't know what happened to that either. Someone borrowed the Crow from you and never gave it back.
This guy over here. Okay, well, let's chat about the world then, because the world is mysterious.
Yeah, so in this world, animals can talk. There's robots, and you're allowed to. There's people that can get into your mind and see what's going on in there. You can have a conversation in someone's mind.
It's a sci-fi world that doesn't answer a whole lot of questions.
I really love that, man. Maybe I get points for tying it back to Lost yet again, but I love it when you get a mysterious story, right? And it throws a whole bunch of strange things
I swear,
at you.
the Dharma Initiative has this place bugged or something.
They probably do, man. You got to be careful with those guys. But like, we got to talk about like those weird. There was like a whole weird race of like forest creature people that like only get touched on for one issue. It like you talked about this, Will, when you interviewed Scotty, but like the length of this comic, I think, is one of my favorite parts, is that it has an end. I hate when comics just go on forever and tell as much as they can of the story and just ramble on and then kind of fizzle out. I love it when something jumps in, tells the story, and ends.
Roll clip.
This is one of those times where we've got to let the story tell us when a book needs to end. These 18 issues, it's Abel's story with his dad, and if it went on more than that, we feel that we would be doing a disservice to that story and what it meant. So
on that same point, I actually thought for the first few issues that maybe this was all a metaphor, and the fact that his dad's turning into a tornado was just like a way to personify anger or something. But fortunately, it's not. It's just supernatural and weird.
Now he's actually a tornado.
So his dad has the ability to turn into the tornado or the storm, as they call it. But Abel is different with it. He can't really control it. It just comes out when he's really angry or really sad. And it's hard for him to control it and turn back into his human form.
It actually gave me a lot of like Incredible Hulk vibes while I was going through these books. Like,
yeah, you put a note that said Hulk meets Pinocchio. Is that what you said?
Right. That's the impression I got while reading these books. Like it gave me a lot of Hulk vibes in the sense that it's somebody who's kind of cursed almost with this like power that they can't control and that hurts people around them. So there's even a scene in here where Abel like goes away from the people that are around him. Like, I'm too dangerous. You don't want to be near me. I'm going to hurt you guys just by being near you. So it's got a lot of Hulk flavor in that sense. And then it reminded me of Pinocchio, just in the fact that it's a boy going off on a big adventure and trying to be a big man and making stupid mistakes like Pinocchio did with smoking cigars and turning into a donkey and stuff.
Conscience. Nah, phooey.
I just love Pinocchio. That's a little Fire Guy secret there.
Jorge Corona, the artist of this series, just nailed it. This was a perfect matchup. What'd you think, Will?
So the art in this book is really amazing. The colors in this really pop out at you, and you want to just stay really focused into the book and see what's going to happen next.
There's a lot to look at, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much going on in every page, and it just makes it so action-packed. The art in it really connects to the story, and I think that's why it's such the great read it is.
Jorge Corona understands perspective on the page. He knows how to draw buildings. He knows how to draw devices and structures and objects. But here's the thing. I believe he did a lot of this freehand. That's why you get these like gritty lines. That's why you get these shapes that aren't quite perfect, but they're good enough. And oh my gosh, this is something that artists across the board need to take heed of. This is how you can draw quickly.
I don't think that's how you use that word, though.
I think it's take heeded of.
Heed of what? Heeded of.
Headed.
When no one headed.
Take headed of.
No one would take headed of my instructions.
Artists need to take heeded of this style because it will crank work out faster and it works so much better for the story.
One of the cool things about this book, too, is he's going on a journey, right? Abel is traveling throughout the Middle West, which is the name of the land that they are in. And like every issue throws a new thing at you. Like he's traveling to a new town, or he's encountering a new group of people, or he's stuck in the woods, and you got this weird issue that's all dark and shadowy and kind of scary. So the art is it's a really good thing that Jorge is so talented, because there's a whole bunch of different kind of things that are getting thrown at you, and they're all done in this really cool, like Tom is saying, this kind of loose, almost fantasy style that I really dig.
It makes the emotions in the faces real. I mean, we're talking about how a comic book makes you feel. You got to be able to experience it through the art. It's a visual medium. And this team up, they got to do something else. Like I'm crossing my fingers that this isn't the only thing they're going to be doing.
So my favorite cover of this series is Middle West issue number 17. This cover is my favorite because the colors on it makes it really pop, and you can see Abel in the trouble that he is. You can see him like being taken hostage, and it's just an action-packed cover. That's why it's my favorite. Tom, Ryan, what are your favorite covers of this series?
Oh, thanks for asking, man. We're sitting in front of all the covers, and mine is clearly the final issue. It's a cover B, and you have Abel going up, getting ready to fight against his father. And we have this writing all over saying, "You're a monster. I'm just like you." And then also, "I still love you" on this page.
There's a lot of emotion on that cover.
Oh my gosh. This just like personifies what you're feeling by the end of this series. Just a roller coaster of emotion.
I was looking at that cover and I was thinking what it was like for Scotty Young to draw it, because you can see like the majority of it is the tornado effect. So he must have just been sitting there with a pen like
you did in school, right?
Yeah. And all the words are written really scratchy. It looks like a really kind of angry kid's journal, like some kid who's really depressed and upset. Like there's a lot of feeling in that cover.
What about
like
yours? What's your favorite?
Issue 4. I like that one because it's got the carnival. It's the one where Abel joins up with this crew, and he meets this robot whose name is Wrench, which is awesome.
It's like the first community that accepts him. And
Sure.
you got Bobby. Like, all right, I'm hoping that there will be more. And really, there's a lot of characters that we could follow. But I don't know. You chatted with Scotty Young, Will. Do you think there's going to be more to this series?
I don't think there is going to be anything more of the series, because when I interviewed him, he said he wanted to stay there. He didn't want to add anything else. He thought it was a good place to end it. I'm sad and happy at the same time. It's one of my favorite series. I wish it was still going, but I think, like he said, it was a great place to stop it.
Comic fam, you gotta be reading Middle West. This is gonna be a tool that you can use to get people into comic books, but also something that's gonna make you feel good. It's a feel-good comic and one of my favorites in quite a while.
Yeah, they're about to drop a all-in-one hardcover of this sometime 2021, I think Will was telling us.
Yeah, it's going to be dropping in 2021. It's going to be a 600-page hardcover, and there's a picture of it on his Instagram if you want to go check it out.
I'm definitely going to order that. Like, I'm excited to have this on my shelf and not just tucked away in a box somewhere. This needs to be displayed. This needs to be like, people need to come over and be like, ooh, what's Middle West? And I'll be like, borrow that, take that. They'll never give it back. People never give things back.
Comic fam, what do you think about Middle West? Want to hear about it in the comment section below. Big thanks to WillDaBeast for joining us on the mic. His channel is Hero and the Kid. Link in the description to go follow him. It's so cool, man, to see members of our community, the next gen collectors, joining us on the mic, as well as like participating in this like comic fam that we have.
Right. He says he's been on collecting for a year. Like, this is the beginning of his journey. It's really cool to kind of watch his progression, his growth.
He's like buying First Carnage 61s, and I'm seeing like Turoks in the background, and he's joshing about the hologram Turok. I'm like, dude,
they know.
Oh no, the comic fam is creating monsters.
We have a bad influence on people. But no, we've both been on that channel. Will has interviewed both of us. He's interviewed Scotty Young, like we talked about. He's interviewed Ryan Stegman.
Yeah,
you know, there's some good content on that channel. It's worth a follow.
All right, and let's chat about the last book on this list of weekly polls that I've been so excited to talk about. Dude, I've been so pumped to finish getting caught up for a while now. Jeff Lemire just created one of my favorite apocalyptic stories that I've read in quite a long time. And the only reason why I say that, knowing that Memetic is one of my favorite comics of all time, and that's an apocalyptic story, is that Memetic is only 3 issues. It's open shut. Jeff Lemire created a universe, and we're about to live in it for a pretty long time, I'm reckoning.
I hope so, at least. I don't think this book is going to get canceled anytime soon. It's pretty popular. It's pretty good.
Okay, so what do we have? We have a family who's dealing with some family stuff. Just general drama. We have a mother who's a single mother. We have a daughter and a son. And we're following the daughter closely because she apparently has an illness. By the end of issue 1, you see that her arm and her back is starting to grow branches. This girl is turning into a tree.
What a crazy setup. Like, you close the first issue and it's like, she's a tree. She's going to become a tree person.
There's a branch. Like, imagine your kid starts growing a branch out of her back. Like, this is traumatic. This is body horror. It's scary. And it is drawn like so well.
Family Tree's got some cool art. I liked the pencil work. Phil Hester is the name of the penciler for this run.
His use of negative space is so good and sets up Ryan Cody's color work just brilliantly done in this comic book. I actually found a quick little tutorial about his phases of how he took the inks to color and the process, because he's having to consider not just the grittiness of the characters and the dramatics of the story here. The tone is really communicated in the shading and the palette choice.
Start with my black and white line art, drop in my flats, drop in my cell shading, my shadows, drop in my overall lighting scheme, make the main character kind of pop there, do a little overall color scheme there to kind of keep the focus on the main character. And then again, just after I do all that work, I just deaden it just to kind of mute everything.
So one of the things I really liked about the art that I haven't actually seen in any other comic yet was this use of negative space, not just like in the image, but there was a lot of times where like a character would be standing talking and then like their feet or something would trail down into a whole nother panel, but that panel is gone. It's like negative panel space. It's hard to describe, so obviously I'll put up some pictures for you guys, but it's cool use of like layouts and characters and bleeding through different panels, and there's just a lot going on here in a good way.
And it's very purposeful because it's gritty, it's dark, it's at night, it's raining, and we're going through a very traumatic sequence of events. The first 5 issues, and this is spoiler because by the time we get to the big reveal by the end of issue 5, everybody's going to want to not just read all of these issues, they're going to want to jump on board to issue 6, because by the end of this, we have a realization that the first 5 issues are a prelude
Right. There's kind of hints dropped throughout like the intro to these issues that there's an apocalypse, right? There's an apocalyptic event, and we are witnessing the prelude to the apocalypse, basically. And they don't talk about it enough so that it's at the front of your mind. It's kind of in the back of your mind this whole time. And over the course of this 5 issues, you kind of get acquainted with this family unit, not just the mom, but the daughter obviously is kind of the focal point of these first 5 issues. And then you have the older brother who's kind of just there in the background a lot, and then by the time you get to the end, he's kind of more present in the story. So it's really kind of focusing on all 3 of these family members and seeing how they kind of grow and adapt to this insane problem that they have.
So we have also an antagonist that's introduced. For whatever reason, a group of people who may be nefarious, we don't really know, they're trying to kill the daughter. We don't know why, but it puts them on the run. So it makes this already very scary situation that much more stressful. And we have a reveal at the end that in order to, I guess, help the daughter, they need to take her outside. They need to put her in the ground because this has happened before.
You can't stop this is kind of the impression that I got, right? Like she's changing.
She's changing for sure.
Not something that they spend a lot of time in these 5 issues trying to figure out how to maybe prevent this or turn it back or change it.
When I said that it happened before, you find out that it happened before in her own family, but not to this extent, just a little bit. She is the first one to fully evolve, and we see her evolution by the end of issue 5.
She turns into a tree, like a full-on tree, and she's dead. Right? She's gone. She's not like a character in the story anymore.
And that right there marks the first human to turn into a tree, the start of an apocalypse that is natural.
It doesn't make sense, and I'm excited to see how it makes sense.
Whoa, dude.
And you find out by the start of issue 6 that we're going to be following the brother, and it cuts forward a little bit, I think. I dabbled in issue 6. Once I realized that was like the transition, I stopped.
I started issue 6 because I'm like, I have to know what happens because I was only going to read up till issue 5 for the table, but that's what a good comic book does. It makes you keep turning the page. And I checked out issue 6, and yeah, the very first couple pages is the brother in the future as one of the sole remaining humans. Oh my goodness.
That's what happened to me when this book first came out. I read the first issue. I loved it. I didn't have anything to read after that. So it's like, I'm just going to keep getting it. I'm going to let them build up until I get like a full arc. Then I'll read that whole thing. So now the same thing's happening with the second arc. I'm going to have to wait till like issue 10 comes out or whatever at the end of this current stuff, and then maybe jump back into Family Tree and see how they carry it on.
The first 5 issues were gritty. It was gray. It was dark palettes. And then this new world that's filled with foliage is bright. And it's like jungle and wilderness and pretty scary looking. Comic fam, I can't stress enough. You got to read this book if you're into anything like apocalyptic stuff like I am.
It reminded me of The Last of Us, the video game on the PlayStation.
Me too. I'm playing it right now, man, and that's the vibes I was getting from that. It was perfect.
Like an apocalyptic scenario, but where plants are starting to regrow and reclaim. You know, they're taking advantage of the lack of humans. You know, like things are starting to get reclaimed by nature, which is always a cool perspective on an apocalypse.
Comic fam, what are you reading every week? Let us know in the comment section below. If you need a LCS, come join ours. Go check out your local comic shop first, support your comic peeps. But what can they do if they don't live by one?
If you don't live by one, you can check out the description box of this video and all of our videos. There's a link to the Patreon for Milgeek Comics.
That's right. Russ, the comic sensei, could be your comic guy. He'll make sure you get your comics every month, and you sign up to his Patreon, and you get free shipping, as always.
Geek responsibly.
Enough
said. Hey, comic fam. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, we're going to put some more right here. Right there next to my hand. Weekly Pulls. Gem Mint. You should watch that. He's a cool guy. We talked about Joker and some other cool books. Also, John's Comics Kids. We did a Weekly Pulls video with John. You should check that one out, too.